work.
And welcome to the 2020 podcast, where hindsight is 2020, but the takes are always 10 out of 10. If you are a returning listener, you guys already know what's going on. You already know what's going on for the NFL week and what we do around here. But if you're new here, my name is Jacob. I am the host of the 2020 podcast. Drew here is the co-host, and we are a sports-based podcast covering the NFL and the NBA. This is our NFL show. If you want to catch the NBA show, make sure you check us out live on Friday nights. Those episodes go live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube on Saturday. So make sure to check that out for the first time for this season, this week. But before we get into anything, Drew, I got to ask, how's it going?
We've been...
What? We talked about.
We've been better.
Yep.
I mean, listen. In a couple of days, we play a football game, and if we win, we're number one in the division. So all that really matters is getting to the playoffs. The records don't matter. And frankly, nothing that happens in week 5 matters at week 20. So,
yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. It's hard for us, both of us, looking at our respective teams and watching. I've texted you a multitude of not so nice things about the Cowboys and the last couple of weeks, including the text messages I sent yesterday. So I still stand by everything I say about the Cowboys and being uninspiring, and it's boring to watch them, and I'm not enjoying watching them right now. So, but that's not what this week is about. This week we are going over our game of the week to start it out with, and then we have some additional stuff as well that I won't exactly spoil the new names for our segments, but game of the week, let's start there. And we're going to go ahead and cover the game of the week for every single podcast, every single show. And that is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals, where the Ravens pulled out an overtime win over those Bengals. Before we get into our takeaways for the teams, let's go ahead and bring out our MVP and our unsung hero of the day. So, Drew, for you, who's the MVP?
I think there's obvious choices here. For this one, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. He just brings something to the table this year that the Ravens have not had in previous years. And what makes Lamar in the run game so dangerous right now is that spoiler alert, I don't play in the NFL. I'm not a professional football player, but I imagine as you're entering into the mindset that you're about to make a tackle, when you're staring down Derrick Henry and you're staring down Lamar Jackson, there's...
Drew, you disconnected yourself. And Drew hit the mute button for himself. I know there's a mute button sometimes on the top of your mic. Did you hit that? There you go.
I surely did. What the? Hey! That's freaking cool. Where was I at? What did I say? I was talking about being an NFL linebacker, right?
There you go. Yep.
I'm just saying when you gotta square up, get into your stance, and try to take Derrick Henry on versus trying to stay nimble and trying to stay quick to try to tackle Lamar. It's just those mesh points on the read action stuff. It's just very, very hard to defend, and we've seen it now at the highest of levels that it could possibly be. We've seen them blow leads to the Las Vegas Raiders, which they definitely should have lost that game. Shouldn't have lost that game. They shouldn't have lost week 1 against the Chiefs. They threw a game-winning play, and it was a quarter of an inch that cost him the game there. So this Ravens team is really on fire. Derrick Henry's been a massive part of that. And obviously Lamar went nuts also, but you got to pick 2 different people. So I'm going to go with Derrick Henry as my MVP.
Yeah, obviously that huge run, the 51-yard run, obviously just kind of let them win that game at the very end there. But Lamar is obviously the other MVP choice for this game. 26 of 42, 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, and another 12 carries and 55 yards on the ground rushing. So Lamar all over the place. I think we're watching a Lamar Jackson that is somehow, some way, it feels like almost getting better. He played in a Greg Roman offense his first 5 years into the league. He played under Todd Monken last year, winning MVP. You can say what you want. Shouldn't have won, should have won, whatever. Doesn't really matter for this argument. But now in his second year, him gaining more controls and being more comfortable inside of this offense, it seems like he's being able to actually do what he wants here and gaining more control over his line, gaining more control over his passing concepts. So I think we're looking at a Lamar Jackson that's a much better player than last year, him getting more comfortable. And I would not put it past him to start loading another MVP season here pretty soon. So we might be already looking at it, and it's right in the midst of it, but we'll have to see in the coming week. So we got our MVP out of the way. Well, who's our unsung hero? Who's a guy that is not going to get all the big name recognition, or a guy who's not going to be like, hey, he's the guy who won us the game? Absolutely. Who's your unsung hero?
I'm going to go with Justin Tucker on this one. He's gotten off to a rough start to start the season. I think he already has 3 or 4 missed field goals on the season, which is he's had seasons where he hasn't missed 3 field goals the entire season. Obviously, he's getting a little older, but generally you would think it would be the power and not the accuracy that would go on something like that. And when it comes down to it, he made the field goal to win the game, and the Bengals didn't make the field goal to win the game. So at the end of the day, kicker, you saw it in the 49ers game. The 49ers had to go for it on 4th and 26 because they didn't trust their punter to kick a field goal. So it's not a position you think of until all of a sudden the game is on the line or you aren't able to make a field goal. So I'm going to go with Justin Tucker on this one.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and go with the wide receiver, Rashad Bateman. I think he did a couple of really big things in this game. When a game is this close, every single drive matters. And so doing big things like for Rashad Bateman, 2nd and 10, he extended a drive in the first half, which it was just a clutch catch, 2nd and 10, extend the entire drive, which 5 plays later, he then caught a wide open touchdown pass. So he gets rewarded with stuff like that. But so again, extending it, then catching the touchdown pass. And then he had a gain where it looked like he should have been kind of just stopped but with about a 4 or 5 yard game. And then he really accelerated out for that 9 yards, really jump starting their final drive. So small little things like that is what really kind of pushes these small things and lets the superstars be superstars. So Bateman gets my unsung hero of the game. Looking at the teams as a whole now, the takeaways for both teams. Let's go and start with the winning team, the Baltimore Ravens. What did you think about the entire performance? Obviously, Lamar and Derek are really easy to talk about, but what about everything else? What do we think?
Well, I mean, ultimately their defense looked terrible.
Yeah,
that's based off of the final. And you know what's kind of funny about this is me and Jacob here, we talk about things before the podcast goes live. We text about it during the week. We talk about it before we go on. We talk about it after we get off. And there's always a question he asks every week. He says to me, hey, Drew, what do you want to do for game of the week? He didn't even ask me this week. He didn't even give me any opinion. He sent me the script over. He said, game of the week, Ravens Bengals. There was no argument on this. Obviously, you love to see a game like this where the points go crazy. The defense was terrible on both sides. It kind of a tough game for the Ravens defense. There's Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton and the players that they have over on that side. I mean, I think Roquan
talent in that secondary for it to play as poor as it did.
Yeah, Roquan Smith had like 14 tackles. You know, he had like maybe 13 tackles. He had an excellent game on paper, but they were just getting, frankly, the Bengals offense was doing whatever they wanted. The Ravens offense was doing whatever they wanted. And it just, there was no defense to be played in this game.
Yeah. Roquan did have 15 tackles, by the way. You were right initially.
That's just a stupid amount of tackles in today's NFL. It's just a stupid amount.
Absolutely. He got, a crucial 3rd down stop too by just blowing up in the backfield. So Roquan does a lot. He clearly is the guy who made Patrick Queen as good as he did and got him that big contract over there in Pittsburgh. He's not playing too well right now, but Roquan, clearly he's the player that Baltimore traded for. He's the player that you want on your team. He's the 2nd best linebacker in this league right now, right behind Fred Warner. But it's a very close 1A, 1B. So it's incredibly close for me. When it comes to the Ravens, I think my biggest takeaways outside the Lamar Jackson stuff, I already brought it up when it comes to how good he's playing. And we might be looking at another MVP season and he's getting more comfortable in the offense in his 2nd year under Todd Monken. And outside of that, I think fixing the snaps has to be a priority. Because I'm not sure what's going on with Lamar Jackson and Tyler Lindenbaum, but their exchanges, particularly the late stages of the game, looked really bad. The biggest highlight of the day, obviously, is Lamar Jackson's, stiff arm of Sam Hubbard, then crossbody throw, a yard or a foot away from the out of bounds line over to Isaiah Likely, right? That's the biggest highlight of the game. But there goes Drew messing with the stuff. But that all started because Lamar Jackson had a bobbled snap. So the entire thing started because of that. And then on the final drive of regulation, the Ravens had to burn a timeout because they couldn't get the snap off in time, even though Lamar Jackson was clapping his hands. And it seemed like Lamar was saying after the post-game stuff, he was saying that Lamar was trying to snap the ball while Tyler was trying to get the pass protection set. So there was a little bit of miscommunication there. And then obviously at the end of the game as well, there was a turnover that could have been costly, but it wasn't. But again, that's 3 separate times where we're talking about miscommunications, miscues, miss snaps, fumbling the ball away on snaps. So I think a lot of that, it's the little things in games like this that make the difference, right? I already talked about Rashad Bateman and the little things of the 2nd and 10 catch, and then catching the touchdown pass, and then getting an extra 4 yards. Stuff like that matters. So every individual snap in a game that you win in overtime by 3 points, that stuff matters. So if you can't fix the snaps, you might have issues way later down the line. Get it fixed now while we're about to go into week 6, not week 16. So that's my biggest takeaway for the Ravens is those snaps. What about for the Bengals? I know they lost, but there's obviously some stuff that needs to be talked about with them.
Well, the thing about the Bengals is the one thing that was impressive for them on the defensive side is I think the Ravens really came into this game. They wanted to run the ball. And if you take away Derrick Henry's one run, he averaged less than 3 yards a carry. The Bengals got BJ Hill back. The run defense looked a lot better than it has in recent weeks. Now, that's the thing with Derrick Henry. Talked about it last week on the pod is he goes 2 yards in a cloud of dirt, 2 yards in a cloud of dust, 2 yards in a cloud of dust, and then he breaks it off for 50. He did the same exact thing tonight. I think he has 14 carries at only, 2.75 yards per carry. And then he goes for 50 on one given play, and so that's a sign of positive for the Bengals struggling defense. But then the negative to that is going to be at some point coming out of halftime, they just decided that they were going to put the ball in the hands of their 2-time MVP quarterback and make him just, go nuts with the passing game. And they were going to figure that out. Obviously, a lot to take away on the Bengals side in the offense. Offense looked great. Welcome back, Jamar Chase. Welcome back, T. Higgins. But again, this team, I harped on this in the offseason. I'm going to harp on it now. What would this team look like with a healthy Joe Mixon? Zach Moss has done absolutely nothing. Chase Brown has done absolutely nothing.
Chase
Together,
Brown is the leader on the team at this point when it comes to the running back position. He's already over the starting role.
I mean, they're averaging 3 yards a carry. It's just nothing dynamic. And Zach Taylor and his offense and everything he's supposed to bring to the table. Obviously, the offense showed out this week, especially in the passing game. But, if I picked Joey Burrow to be the MVP in the offseason, the reason why I picked him is because I thought he'd have to go for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns every week for his team to have a chance. Yeah. That's a direct quote. And unfortunately, this week they put up 38 and they lost the game. And that's just got to be heartbreaking for him. It's got to be heartbreaking for the team, the fan base, all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is 3 straight games of 30 plus for the Bengals, but they're taking losses against the Commanders, which the Commanders are the Commanders right now, and they're taking loss against the Ravens too as well. So the offense is doing their job. Jamar Chase is doing his job, right? We might talk about him a little bit later. Unfortunately for them as well is it's an injury concern is my biggest takeaway for them. You lose Dax Hill to injury now, right? Dax Hill plays a safety spot / nickel spot. So he kind of plays all over the place. He's that dynamic safety, plays all over the place for the Bengals defense. But you lose him, and now you're losing him for the entire year. So that's the reports that have already come out. Dax Hill's he's done. He's done for the year. And it's huge because when it comes to Cam Taylor-Britt, he's hot and cold over the last couple of weeks. He probably has the best pick over the year when he did that crazy, one-handed pick crazy. But that's cool. But again, he's up and down when it comes to his coverage. So having Dax Hill on that team was massive for them. Now, with him being out, it's definitely going to be hurting a little bit. Amarius Mims also needed the cart to leave the field. He came back, but leaving on the cart is not a great sign. So hopefully it's nothing super structural with him, and hopefully that he can continue to play. Trent Brown's already out. So they spend a lot on the offensive line when it comes to draft capital and actual money itself. if you have those two guys out, those are your two starting tackles, and you're gonna have an issue there. So
do you know that Joe Burrow is at a 73% completion rating? He has 1,300 passing yards. He has 12 touchdowns and 2 picks. He has been fantastic.
Yeah.
And they've won one football game.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a little disappointing, but I think when it comes to the problems and trying to dissect on what the issue is really here, we could save that for a little bit later when we talk about if a coaching change needs to happen there in Cincinnati or if it's something else.
You telling me that defense could use Bill Belichick? Is that what you're telling me? I know we talked about that one time. We got the Bengals fans were excited. They were like, "Yes, please get rid of Zach." Zach Taylor's still riding high on his Super Bowl appearance that was roughly 16 years ago. So. Right.
All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna have to move on. And I'm not sure if you do that, but that's our Week 5 heat check, baby. And this is where we check in with the hottest players around the NFL on the defensive side, the offensive side, and we give a special shout out, special spotlight to those rookies that we've been paying very close attention to for 10 months now, it feels like. So again, this is our heat check. This was formerly our players of the week, calling it something different so you guys can have a little bit different flair, I guess we can call it, but something different, something fun. So I want to go ahead and look at the defensive side first. Couple of guys who really showed out this week. I don't think there was as big as performance as there's been for the first 4 weeks, where I felt like I was choosing like 5 or 6 guys and really having to dwindle it down. To me, there was like 3 guys who really stood out. Outside of that, everyone else can kind of be pushed to the side. So Drew, for your hottest player of Week 5, who do you have?
I'm just gonna go with the guy that picked off a ball in the end zone and he took it all the way back for a touchdown, Mr. Pat, for the Denver Broncos. And I have to be honest. He did do it against the Raiders, which makes me a little bit, biased. Anything that happens against the Raiders makes me happy inside. So,
no,
Mr. Patrick Surtain, it was crazy watching him run down the field. I'm like, my goodness, look at this man gallop. He looks like Derrick Henry out there with that big old up strong. Yeah, I'm just like, wow, look at this guy go.
Yeah, man. I think Patrick Surtain is, I think Sauce has kind of supplanted himself in terms of he's the number 1 corner for the past couple of years, and I think Surtain's really kind of saying, hey, I think you guys should double check on that, because when we're looking at Pat, obviously we have 2 interceptions, 3 tackles, a pick 6 for 100 yards, and 2 pass deflections in this game alone. When you're looking at the other previous couple of weeks too, you have DK Metcalf, you have George Pickens, you have Mike Evans, and you have Garrett Wilson. Those guys have a combined 87 routes for 7 catches and 75 yards allowed for those 4 guys combined. So if you want to just kind of recontextualize that a little bit, that means Patrick Surtain has more interception return yards than he has allowed yards on receptions, and 0 touchdowns allowed. Another thing, guy we might talk about a little bit later, is when it comes to Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers had a great game. He was fantastic. He was also targeted 2 times when Patrick Surtain was the nearest defender. And you all know what happened during those 2 times? 2 interceptions. He just doesn't let it. When he's near the ball, when it comes to the best player on the offensive side, he just kind of shuts that guy down. He's been doing it for the past couple of years, but I feel like he's taking that to a whole nother level this year. Seriously, like, I want to keep a very close eye on what he does for the next couple of weeks. Corners don't win depoys. He needs to have some crazy stats and be able to shut guys down at the same time. If he can make that case, it's going to be exciting to watch for the Defensive Player of the Year.
I mean, oftentimes the best defensive player doesn't win the depoy. It's the guy that has the most sacks, because there's been some middle linebacker performances over the years that are just absolutely, when you have middle linebacker taking away the whole middle of the field, when you have a shutdown corner taking a whole half of the field, that's kind of what made Deron Bland did last year crazy, because it was like, why are we still throwing at this guy? Like, right. if you targeted Darrelle Revis as often as everyone else got targeted, how many interceptions would he have in his career? It was called Revis Island for a reason. it's hard for these guys to get the counting stats to get the award, but we know who the true dogs are out there.
Absolutely. For the hottest defensive player of the week for me, I'm going to give it out to, there's two guys who can go back and forth with this one, but I think I'm going to give it to Kobe Turner. He had 6 tackles, 1 forced fumble, a pass deflection, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for a loss. Kind of all over the place for a guy on the line. Again, getting a pass deflection, a forced fumble, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for a loss on there. The other guy I also considered, got to give a shout out to the big guys on the interior. Probably is the best interior defender right now. Dexter Lawrence, 4 tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 tackles for a loss, helping that New York Giants do an upset against the Seattle Seahawks. So both those guys pretty close, but I would just give it the slight edge to Kobe if I wasn't giving it to Pat. Looking on the other side of the ball, though, on the offensive side, there's a handful of guys we can talk about here. I feel like there's 4 quarterbacks that you can kind of throw in there that really had decent performances, but only a couple of wide receivers really could throw their hat in it. So one guy I'll throw in is Ja'Marr Chase, 10 catches, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the day. So he almost eclipsed that 200 point. He's had a past couple of weeks, 2 weeks, he's had good games. So Jamar's really kind of coming around after he had his whole stint with his whole contract situation. I'm glad that's over. He's focusing on the ball game, and he's really showing you why he deserves that contract. Also, T. Higgins back in the lineup and healthy and actually being able to contribute fully. That is huge for Ja'Marr Chase, and that proves it the past couple of weeks as well. So hopefully we're not going to see some type of, I don't want to jinx it, but like some type of downplay for him.
Don't jinx it
if T's gone. So
I feel like you jinx people all the time.
I may.
Who was your boy from the Bucks that you mentioned last week?
From the Bucks that I mentioned.
He's like 77 years old.
Oh, yeah, Levante.
Levante got torched this week. That dude gave up like 12 catches for 90 yards or something stupid. He realized he was old again. So
right, he forgot.
When you look at the Bengals, not to harp on this, I know we'll talk about them a little bit later, but I honestly, with the way they're playing and how they're not winning all of these things, I almost don't blame the front office for not giving T. Higgins the contracts he wants, because you're going to pay Ja'Marr Chase $200 million, you're going to pay T. Higgins $160 million, and you're still losing.
Yeah,
they got to invest some money on the defensive side of the ball for certain.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. When it comes to those offensive guys, who's the hottest player of the week for you for week 5?
I wanted to go with a guy that, we talk about him as if he's arrived, and he really hasn't done much yet. And then he had this massive game, and that's going to be Drake London for the Atlanta Falcons. He caught 12 of 13 targets. He had 150 yards and a touchdown. And then the coolest thing happened, he gets hurt and he comes off the field for one play. And then this dude that's been in the league for a million years and only had one catch this season houses the ball, and to win the game, and he's in tears. And it was great. It was a great game to watch. And Kirk Cousins picked apart that defense. He just picked them apart. Now I know they got a bunch of injuries, but I'm going to go with Drake London. Shout out, having a huge game. That team is filled with what ifs. That team is filled with, Bijan. We think Bijan is a superstar, but he's losing carries to Tyler Algier. And we think Kyle Pitts is the next whatever. We've never really seen a player like him before, but he's not really doing anything. Shout out to him. I think he had 50 or 60 yards this week. And then Drake London, we just assume, but then he hasn't even been Kirk's favorite target. The number 2 out there has been, what's his name? Darnell Mooney. Damn. I hate when I do that. But yeah, shout out to Drake London. It wasn't the biggest performance of the week on offense, but it was definitely the most surprising, considering the fact that he hadn't put up a stat like that previously, stat line like that.
Before we get into our rookies, question about Kirk Cousins, 42 of 59, 509 yards and 4 touchdowns, obviously huge week. But when it comes to his first couple of weeks of performance and now, how much stock do we put into the quarterback play for the first 4 weeks compared to this week? Because we don't really see a whole lot of starting quarterbacks play a lot in the preseason. Are they like treating those first 4 weeks as like warm-ups almost? Like, are the coaches easing them in and limiting the playbooks a little bit before they really go all out for the next couple of weeks? Like, because all of a sudden, week 5, we had a ton of big plays for quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins. Lamar's been playing great. CJ Stroud had a good game as well. So Dak had over 300 yards. So there was a lot of guys who went over 300 this week. When we're sitting here talking 3 weeks ago, Mel Kiper's on ESPN screaming at the sky and angry, saying too high safety. So what do we got?
This is Jay Gruden, Kirk Cousins' offensive coordinator when he was with the Washington football team. At least we got a 3rd-round supplemental pool draft pick for Kirk. Sounds like Jay Gruden might still be a little salty that the Washington football team let Kirk go.
Right. All right. Moving into our rookies.
To answer your question, I apologize. Yeah. I honestly don't take much of anything that happens with Kirk this season as what's going to be his, what he's going to be going forward. Obviously, the flip side of that is Michael Penix sitting on the bench, but you're talking about a player that didn't move well to begin with. Then he has an Achilles injury. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers looks absolutely terrible. Like, now that he can't move, I'm gonna give the viewers a little spoiler alert. Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to throw the football the way he does 20 years from now. Yeah. I guarantee you that Jerry Rice could still get out there and run in a straight line. Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to zip the ball like he has for the rest of his life, but the mobility is gone, and it's not coming back at age 40. And similar to Kirk Cousins, you come off that injury, the first 4 weeks, you throw him in the trash because everybody was anointing the Saints, the playoff team in that division. Now they're 2-3. Now all of a sudden you look at the standings now, it's like, well, the Falcons are on a roll and they've dropped a couple games and they've gotten battle tested, and their defense, they got AJ Terrell out there. They got a terrific safety. They had the NFL Defense Player of the Week last week. They're starting to ratchet up at the right time, and that division is hella competitive. So it's going to be pretty exciting to watch going forward.
Yeah, the Panthers are going to throw their hat in there. So looking at the hottest rookies performances.
Red Rifle.
Yeah, of week 5. We're going to go ahead and point out our top 3. Most likely you're going to get 3 from Drew, 3 from me. So in reality, you're getting kind of like a top 6. Drew, who is your first guy that you want to shout out?
Why don't you go first?
All right. Well, I don't want to steal anyone from you, so I'll go ahead and just mention a Mr. Caleb Williams, 20 of 29, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 carries for 34 yards. Caleb looked good out there. At the end of the day, he looked great, and I hope he did against a poor passing defense. But at the end of the day, he played well. 5 weeks into the season, his 5th game in the league, and he really showed out. So we talked a little bit about Caleb and the Chicago Bears and the play calling and how piss poor it's been. So to have Caleb actually have a good game and look like what he's supposed to look like has been exciting to watch. So shout out Caleb for my first one.
Yeah, I'll stay quarterback. We've talked about him every week, it feels like, and we're going to continue to talk about Mr. Jayden Daniels. What really impressed me this week is that he didn't have the 85% completion rating performance. He did have a pick, in the end zone, in the red zone. And he just did what he needed to do for his team to win. And they are 4-1. They're looking impressive. They have a massive game this week against a big-time opponent. So we're going to find out a lot about Mr. Jayden against a really, really good, we think, defense, although it just got shredded. Don't think it's getting shredded 2 weeks in a row. So we'll definitely see what's coming. But Jayden Daniels has been fantastic. I was all over him in the offseason. I loved him to death. And even I was not picking and I love Adam Peters. I love everything they've done in Washington. I've told you multiple times, you got to watch out for them. They're going to be a force going forward. I didn't see 4-1.
No, not like this. It's funny because after, did you end up seeing that throw, that 55-yard or 60-yard bomb that Caleb did right before that pick? Or not Caleb, excuse me, but Jayden did, dude. I was just saying, like, oh yeah, Jayden just had the second best throw, in the NFL, right behind, obviously the week 1, a throw with, dude, I'm totally spacing, quarterback for the Colts,
Anthony Richardson off his back foot.
Yeah, off his back foot. Still probably.
What college did he go to though?
Miami.
Yeah, see, I can always remember the colleges. I can always remember the Texas kid. The Texas kid.
But yeah, so but he does it like the next week after. And Drew brought up too is when he was always arguing with me again. I was not a big Jaden Daniels supporter, but something that Drew always brought up, he's the most accurate quarterback in college. Like you look at everything, it's translating very comfortably translating, and these deep bombs that he's having, it's kind of incredible to see how much he puts it on the money. You're going, God damn, man. Like, it's just, you can't put it any better than where he's putting it week in and week out. The second guy I'm going to go ahead and go forward with is I'm going to go, we already mentioned him last week. So actually, I'm going to skip over him. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to go Tyrone Tracy, running back for the New York Giants, 18 carries, 129 yards. He had a big week for him, in a running back room that is what? Devin Singletary. I know that's your boy, but having a big game like this for Tyrone Tracy, who was already starting to get a little bit more carries week in, week out, now having a big game, maybe we'll see a little bit close to split carries. I know Devin's had ups and downs. He's been fine, but having a big game like this for Tyrone Tracy might give him the breakout performance to start getting more carries on the team more consistently. So I like Tyrone, and I'm going to give him the second spot. I'm saving a defensive spot for you, by the way, to see if you'll mention him. So I don't want to take him.
I'm not, because I'm going to continue to mention Brock Bowers on this podcast every week until he tears his ACL or retires from the game of football as the greatest tight end to ever play. And in year 2 or 3, when he switches to wide receiver, a la Jimmy Graham, that way he could get paid more, I'm still going to support him then. So I'm going to support Brock Bowers. He continues to be one of the highest rated rookies on the field. He continues to be one of the best tight ends in the field in the NFL, which the tight end play this year has not been great. Shout out to Mark Andrews. He came back to life this week. I think he had 50 or 60 yards on four catches on 5 targets. But Brock has just been
tonight too.
He did, which, I wanted to know if it was going to go Xavier Worthy strong in this game. And clearly Xavier Worthy and his route tree is just so incredibly limited that, they did have that little dope play they ran with Travis Kelce in the backfield and pitched it to him for a 3-yard touchdown. Right. But, the tight end play has not been great. Brock Bowers has been great.
Yep. Well, the last one I was leaving off for Drew because it was his guy and in the pre-draft process, and I wanted to see if he was going to take him. He had his first sack of his career, so I wanted to throw him out there. Edgerrin Cooper had 5 tackles, 1 sack, and a tackle for a loss this week. So wanted to give him a shout out for having his first sack of his career. There's another guy who also had his first sack of his career, but the 5 tackles and the tackle for a loss additionally also kind of gave him the edge over an Austin Booker out there in Chicago. So giving it to Edgerrin Cooper for that third spot for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the player that we haven't talked about yet. Matter of fact, I just mentioned Xavier Worthy, so it'll be fitting that I mention this name next. But Mr. A.D. Mitchell for the Colts, they've been talking about him getting a bigger role, and he definitely had a bigger role this week. He had some weird things. He was slipping all over the field, but he got targeted 7 times in the game. I think that probably has a lot to do with Flacco and it not being Anthony Richardson. So we'll see if it'll continue, but there's obviously how explosive that offense can be is going to be tough with injuries to Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson, but A.D. Mitchell was still one of my favorites in the pre-draft process, even though I took Xavier Worthy over him and people hated me for that. I want to see these guys that we spend a lot of time talking about do big things, and I'm especially interested in the wide receivers, especially the ones that were taken before our first round pick that has yet to play a snap, although it's not his fault. He got shot. So shout out to A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah, and then speaking of wide receivers too, shout out Jordan Whittington, who also had a good game. So another guy I just wanted to throw a shout out to as well.
That dude's on the come up.
Yep. No, he's been awesome. There's a couple other guys who are out there who had big games too. Tyke Smith, safety from the Bucks, had a big game too. Again, Austin Booker I mentioned. Brian Thomas blew up, and he could have been mentioned, but obviously we like to give shout outs to a couple of guys who haven't had big games yet and end up doing something nice for week 5. So those are our hottest rookies of the week. And not only that ends our heat check for week 5. It was a lot of fun, but go ahead.
Whoever that dude is for the New York Giants that blocked that kick and made the Seahawks lose, he's my player of the week. I don't even know who the hell he is.
I don't either.
Hey, so I know you didn't catch the full game tonight, but there's this guy. Did you see the Kalen Sanders play?
No, I didn't. I don't think
He's
I
like
did,
a
at least.
he's like
The big dude.
the 330
Yeah,
pound.
I did. Yeah, I did.
So
That was awesome.
his brother is a dancer for Taylor Swift.
Is he
So
really?
yeah, backup
Oh, that's
dancer.
funny.
So they're doing this big highlight thing on his brother, and then Travis Kelce catches the ball, and this dude tackles him, right? And then Patrick Mahomes goes to throw that slant to Juju Smith-Schuster, and then he intercepts the ball and gets up to like 17 miles an hour and runs it all the way out to like the 40 or something. Right after they'd done a feature on his brother, it was like they put the feature up. They showed, of course, they want to put Taylor Swift on the screen as much as they can,
Right.
and then he has this massive play, and I'm like, the NFL is scripted, man. There's the proof.
Right. Well, those are our hottest players of week 5, and not everyone can be winners around here. Someone has to be a loser, and that's when they go inside of our dog house. All right, Drew, dog house for week 5. Do you want to go first? You want me to go?
You could go.
All right. I think this one has to be pretty evident. He probably should be in the doghouse for a multitude of reasons, not just his play on the field, but Deshaun Watson and the entire Cleveland Browns organization need to go inside of the doghouse, not just for week 5, but for the entire season and last season and the season before that. I think Watson just stinks at football. At the end of the day, you don't even have to go into any further depth than that. You could just say he stinks at football, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, no, absolutely. His throws are inaccurate. He ran into the pressure half the time on all of his throws. He made terrible decisions with the football. He ended the game with a QBR of 8.5. No, wait, hold on. That's not his worst performance for this season. 7.6 was his worst in a week 1 loss against the Cowboys. That's 2 single-digit QBRs for this year.
He is a NFL record holder now.
Okay.
Do you know what the record is?
No, I want to know.
He just set the NFL record for the least amount of yards thrown per completion through the first 5 games of an NFL season.
See,
that's history, dog.
Yeah, yeah. Build him a statue. Okay.
Did you see the play where the Browns were all on the field on 4th down and Stefanski was trying to call in a play and he just walked off the field?
Yeah, he just walked off.
He's like, nah, not today. My toe hurts. I gotta go.
He's done.
Listen, I gotta take my phone over to the side of the beam. I gotta take my phone over to the sideline here, and I gotta deposit my check that I just got. The 1.9 million a game you're paying me. That way, the funds will clear by after the game, so I can go see. Oh, almost got canceled.
Yeah, you stopped there. Quick question from the YouTube chat. Stash Kendre Miller. Running back for the Saints. He's been hurt in and out. From what I hear, when it comes to the Saints and those running backs, they don't like him very much, and he's not liked out there for Dennis Allen. That's not a guy I would go with because he's kind of getting close to that chopping block. He's super developmental. I wouldn't mess with him too much. I don't think he's worth a stash. That's me personally. Getting back to the doghouse, though, and getting back to Deshaun Watson, his best QBR through 5 games this season is 37.1. To put that in perspective, Gardner Minshew just got benched.
Hey, how come you didn't ask for my feedback on the fantasy football idea?
Oh, no, go ahead if you want to.
I don't have feedback on fantasy football. All I do is get fantasy football leagues canceled. So don't ask me about anything fantasy football related.
Oh, man.
I am undefeated in my league with my dad, though, so that's cool. I didn't draft the team. I didn't show up for the draft because I had work, and they drafted the team for me. And they drafted me Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Zach Moss, but I'm undefeated, so suck it.
There you go. So again, his QBR 37.1 is his best throughout the 5 games of this season. That's his best game. Gardner Minshew's worst game is still better than that, and he just got benched. And Deshaun has not been benched yet. And you have a guy like Jameis Winston backing you up. He can go 30 for 30 on the season, 30 picks, 30 touchdowns, but at least he'll get something going. Watson is averaging a minus .30 EPA per dropback after 5 weeks. That's the worst start to a season for any Browns quarterback since the turn of the century. Any Browns quarterback. If you know anything about the history of Browns quarterbacks, is they're not very good, and you can't name a lot of Browns quarterbacks. Browns, this is why they go inside the doghouse. They handed Watson a fully guaranteed $230 million contract 2 years ago. Now you're locked into that for 3 more seasons. It could get worse. It feels like financially, because you can't cut him, because if you cut him, then you're out $172.9 million in cap space. And he's not going to take a pay cut, especially for a guy where if he looks at his horizons, he's going to say, I don't know if I'm going to be starting in the NFL. I'm probably never going to get a big contract ever again. I'm not going to go ahead and take a pay cut, because if they cut me, they still owe me all of that money because it's a fully guaranteed deal. He's not going to want to restructure. So again, Deshaun Watson for his play, and the Cleveland Browns for signing this dude and now being locked in for a couple more years. They go inside of my doghouse. Who goes in yours?
Staying on yours for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you know what his cap hit the next 2 years is?
$72.9 million.
$73 million.
Dude, crazy. No, it's absolutely bonkers, bro.
And then you got Dan Orlovsky on TV saying that the Cleveland Browns is the worst situation in pro sports. And if you want to see a situation where the head coach has absolutely zero say on who's getting on the field, look at the Browns. Yeah. The head coach you would think would want to save his job at this point. Like, Jameis Winston is a suitable backup.
Yeah.
Now, I'm okay to see the Browns continue to fail, because someone told me they were going to make the playoffs over the Bills this year. So I'm super happy to see. What's up? Was that you? I forgot. I'm sorry. So, who else is back there? Who you got in studio? Because just so you know, Justin Fields left the studio for me. Justin Fields is out there doing big things and almost stealing games away from the Cowboys. So, yeah. So my roof doghouse of the week is going to go to. Now this may sound funny because I'm going to look up the stat. Oh yeah.
Yeah. While we're waiting for Drew.
I'm sorry that I don't write everything down before the game that you do. All right. Yeah. The man that's going to my doghouse this week is currently second in the league in rushing yards. And that's going to be Jordan Mason, because I don't care how many yards you have. I don't care. When you fumble the football, it doesn't matter what you've done that game. And when your fumble causes your team to lose to a division opponent that you're beating by 10, and I don't care that the kicker was hurt. I don't care about any of that. Yeah. You're stopped 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and you stay up and you're battling for what? To get an extra half a yard, to get an extra yard. I don't know if you saw the play, but they run the ball to the left behind Trent Williams. He gets hit 3 yards behind it. And then he's fighting. And then he gets smacked in the face mask. And as the hand is dragged down his face mask, it knocks the ball loose. Yeah. Right? Probably should have been a penalty, but I don't play those games. Just, he's got 2 fumbles on the year, and it cost us the football game. So Jordan Mason goes into my doghouse. Now he's in there alone because Brandon Ayuk got his ass out. Brandon Ayuk showed out this week. So finally, which I'll be honest with you, I think has more to do with Kyle Shanahan not scheming anything around him as kind of a punishment for him than anything. But they put the scheme on him this week, which you could clearly see because Debo didn't do much. Juwan Jennings didn't do much scheme-wise. And, Jordan Mason's in the doghouse with Deshaun Watson, which that's not a place I'd want to be. Fitting that the Cleveland Browns are the dog pound and their quarterback's in the doghouse.
Yep, Deshaun Watson, Jordan Mason, and Diddy. All right. Moving on past our doghouse. I love doing the power rankings week in and week out because sometimes it gets really, really difficult. And this is a week I feel like I had a lot of movers and shakers. Only one new team inside of my power rankings, but a lot of movers and shakers inside of there as Drew does his dance. This is our top.
That's me moving and shaking.
Top 10 power rankings for week 5. Before we get into it, though, I have 3 teams that just missed the cut, and that's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who did just lose against the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, who did not play, so they were already just missing the cut. They didn't do anything to bounce inside that top 10. And our new number 11 spot is going to be the San Francisco 49ers, just missing just outside that top 10. So is anyone missing the cut for you before we get into it?
Based off of the mathematics here, I think I have the Buccaneers at 11 because the 49ers are still in.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason for that is simply just going to be head-to-head matchups. If the 49ers played the Packers today, if the 49ers played the Commanders today, if the 49ers played the Falcons today, I'm taking the 49ers in all those games. They got 2 losses this year where they were up 10 in the fourth quarter and rooskied their ball away to losses against division opponents. And then they have a quality loss against the Vikings. So nothing that's happened in the first 5 weeks of the season has any bearing on what's going to happen to the playoffs, and they're going to get their players back and get healthy. And their quarterback is still balling out. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you there on that, on the ladder. Who's your number 10 spot?
Welcome to the top 10 power rankings. The Atlanta Kirk Cousins are debuting in the top 10 for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're at my number 9 spot. They're the only new team for me as well. But they hit that number 9. I just wasn't comfortable with my 10 getting past them.
Yeah. My whole thing with that is it's your first time into the top 10. I can't put you any higher than 10.
Yeah. No, you said the same thing about the Commanders last week. So at the very least, if anything, you're consistent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Try to give out the compliments. That's as far as compliments I can go for you, though, Drew. So
don't worry. I get up every morning and compliment myself just enough. So
my number 10 spot is the Green Bay Packers. I already mentioned my number 9 spot is the Atlanta Falcons. The Packers stay at that 10 spot for me back-to-back weeks. I probably could have had the Falcons at the 10 spot, but I think that the performance for Atlanta was more impressive than what Green Bay is put together against the Rams. You got your starting quarterback and you quarterback back, and you ended up losing last week's game against a good team. And then week 1, you lose as well against a team that's right outside of my top 10 in the power rankings. And then you beat the Rams. So only by 5. So I don't know how much stock I'm putting into it over the Falcons and what they've done so far up to this point, past couple of weeks. But I like the overtime win of what they did. And Kirk Cousins, ended up having 509 yards passing. So I let that sway me a little bit because Kirk looked good. So I put the Packers at my 10 spot and the Falcons at my 9 spot right now. Who's at your 9?
The 49ers.
Okay.
So I had the Packers at 8.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you moved them
for all the things you mentioned. Yeah, they got a dub.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think my problem is when it comes to the Niners is I dropped them outside of my top 10. Is giving up that lead is obviously massive and it hurts a lot. And it's not the first time that you guys have given up a blown lead like that. And then obviously a blowout. Excuse me. A blowout against the not a blowout, but a loss against the Vikings as well, who's a very, very, very good team, very high in our power rankings. But again, your wins this year so far against the Jets and the Patriots, I'm not sure. Again, you're 11. You're sitting right outside of it. I still put a lot of stock inside the Niners. If we're talking about the Cowboys here against the exact same teams, again, I'm a pessimistic fan. I'm dropping. They haven't been in my just missed the cut or inside my top 10 since like week 1. So that just kind of shows you my opinion on them very high.
My whole thing with the Niners right now is that everybody's given Jordan Mason his flowers, but we have 2 running backs on the IR.
Yeah.
Jordan Mason's the 3rd string running back, and he's 2nd in the league in rushing. That's awesome. Yep. But there's a reason why he's your 3rd string running back, because he's prone to fumbling the football. It's just like in the game against the Rams. Brock Purdy puts up a beautiful ball to Ronnie Bell, who's not wide open, but he's open for NFL terms, streaking down the sideline.
Right.
And he dropped the ball. He let it bounce off his chest. Well, he's our sixth wide receiver. Most of the time, he's not even active. The 49ers are losing football games right now because their best players are not playing. Well, that's why these power rankings are week to week and we're not ranking the clear and obvious threats for the playoffs because I'd have the 49ers a lot higher. So I couldn't take them out this week because there wasn't a team that I felt did enough to go in. I thought about putting the Cowboys back in, but they look so lethargic against the New York Giants. But I was like, okay, that's a Thursday night football game. They'll be fine. And then they looked bad again against the Steelers. And the Steelers have been good this year, but it took a game-winning heroic throw after almost having one of the greatest defensive players of all time going on that fumble by Rico Dowdle. But again, you got Rico, you got him handling the ball. And I know he had career high in carries and career high in total yards and all that stuff, but that dude's not a bell cow running back in the NFL. Nope. He's out of position in what they're asking him to do right now. So I don't know. It's tough. If the 49ers barely beat the Seahawks this week, even though Seahawks have a good record, then they may not make my top 10 again. But I kind of expect, and I'm a pessimistic fan like you, I think we're going to house the Seahawks on Thursday. So we'll see.
My number 8 spot is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You said you dropped the Bucs right outside your top 10, right?
Yeah. So you have the Bucs in. I have the Niners in. It seems like.
Yeah. So obviously, I still, even with the loss, I still believe in the Bucs pretty highly. It's an overtime loss, and their losses come against, I think, a fluky game against Denver, which their Denver defense is playing pretty lights out. With a potential defensive player of the year over there at the corner position. And their defense is just strange. I don't know if you know anything about their defense so far this year. They're playing like the highest amount of cover zero. And like you got guys like Riley Moss and Pat Surtain just absolutely locking down the outsides. And then you have Sebastian Joseph Day and John Franklin Myers. John Franklin Myers. And I'm forgetting the other guy who's actually Zach Franklin, I think. Zach Allen, I think is his name. But you got a couple guys on the defensive line who aren't supposed to be like making a massive impact, and they are making that impact. So their defense is super weird, but it's paying off again, playing the highest amount of cover zero in there. But I like the wins that they've picked up against Washington and Detroit and Philly, and then a close loss, a divisional loss against Atlanta. So I still keep them inside of my top 10, and obviously a lot has to do with me believing in the Bucs and Baker Mayfield pretty highly still up to this point.
They got a big game this week. They got the Saints, so
yeah,
if they come out and put a showing on the Saints, that's going to move them to 4-2, and I think that division, it's a big week for them because Atlanta, I think, plays the Panthers. So
they're all the way up until the bye week, dude. They have a schedule where it's going to be prove it or lose it. They have division opponent, New Orleans. They have Baltimore, Monday Night Football. They have Atlanta again. They have Kansas City on Monday Night Football. And then they have the 49ers. And then they go into their bye week. They have a rough road ahead. If they can come out, a couple of wins under their belt, they deserve in that top 10, but we might be genuinely looking at one of the last times that the Bucs are either in the top 10 or they move up the top 10 pretty significantly. So it sways one way or the other with the Bucs. I don't think there's an in-between right here. But then after that, they get a little bit of a break against the Giants, Carolina, Vegas, the Chargers, the Cowboys, Carolina, and then they go against New Orleans. I said a break. And then, New Orleans to end out their season. So go ahead with your next one. Wasn't sure you're at your 8 or your 7.
Yes, Falcons, 49ers. I got the Packers at 8, which means the Washington Commanders are at number 7.
Same thing for me. They are also at my number 7.
Are they going to win the division?
At this point, looking at it, it looks like it. I would have to look at the rest of their schedule, but I mean, the way they're blowing out the teams and the way that Jaden's playing, I'm waiting for the, he looks like a rookie thing to kind of come around and bite him. It hasn't happened yet. Playing against Baltimore this week, we mentioned earlier, Carolina, Chicago, the Giants, Pittsburgh, and then Philly week 11. So outside of the Baltimore, you have a couple games right there in a row where
Their last 4 weeks, though, man, they go New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta, Dallas. That's yikesies.
And even with the defenses too, I mean, they play Chicago's defense, they play Pittsburgh's defense, and again, they play Baltimore as well. So the defenses, and Tennessee's had a pretty good defense as well. So at the very least, even if the offense isn't keeping up with some of these teams, the defenses that Jaden's having to play is still competitive. So again, they're at my number 7 as well. Again, I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop for Jaden to finally look like a rookie. It hasn't happened.
I'm not. Baller.
I'm fine with it. I'm kind of waiting for it. If he continues, that's pretty awesome. At the number 6 spot, I have the Buffalo Bills, same as Drew, I believe, right?
Yeah, I guess. Just spoil my whole damn list.
Go ahead and talk about the Bills.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. It was a big game. They played the Texans. I'm not too worried about what happened. We know the Texans are good. We know the Bills are good. If these teams played 10 times, they would probably each go 5-5. So it's just one of those things. I'm not going to harp against them too much for not taking the dub. The only thing I am slightly worried about with them is I think that the teams have kind of put a book out on the Bills right now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bills dip into the trade market here to see if maybe they can add another piece on offense. They're just missing just a little bit. So they come in at 6 for me.
Who's your number 5?
The Texans.
Wow, Texans. Where were they at last week? 4?
5.
Okay, so they didn't move. Okay, they didn't move.
I had no movement after this. Everything stayed the same 1 through 6.
Okay. So my 1 and 2 didn't move, and my 3 is Houston. So
I have the Chiefs at 1. We agree there. I'm assuming they didn't lose. I have the Vikings at 2. Those London games are hella weird, and they got the dub. That's all that matters.
Yep.
I have the Lions at 3 still. I had them at 3 last week, and you had the Texans at 3.
Yep.
And then
the Lions at 4, and then they stayed at 4. So.
And moving up to the 4th spot for me is the Ravens.
The Ravens are my 5 spot.
I think the Ravens are the most dangerous team in the NFL. There's not a team in the NFL that I would like. If you told me, okay, you're in the Super Bowl, who's the last team you want to play is the Ravens. I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, obviously, but their offense looks so gutless right now. I'm not worried about the Vikings, even though they already beat us. That was cool, but it's Sam Darnold. Second on that list would be the Texans. I don't really want to see the Texans, but we already beat the Lions, so I'm not, obviously they could beat us also. But right now, the team that really strikes fear in me, and I just don't see a way to slow them down unless you're the Raiders, is the Ravens.
Yeah. Baltimore, I think, was around my 8 spot last week, if I remember correctly. And so they moved up to the 5. The only reason they don't
that's a big boy jump.
They don't move up past that is because the Lions didn't play. I don't feel like you could drop any spots or gain any spots if you don't play, especially if I don't have any questions about you before that. And then so Texans, Vikings, Chiefs all stay the same for me as well. So that 4 through 1 stay the same. Baltimore can't penetrate any past that because the Lions are kind of holding strong at that 4 spot, not playing a game. But it's a big week for a couple of our teams, right? I mean, we're looking, Lee already mentioned it, the Ravens versus Commanders. Could be looking at a potential move around for them. If the Commanders end up winning that game, and depending if they win, they're moving up. But depending how much they win and depending how they play, it depends on how much they move up. Because if that makes them legitimate in my eyes.
Are you predicting the Washington Commanders to beat the Baltimore Ravens?
I don't know. I feel like we might have to talk about that a little bit later for the upset of the week.
Okay. Seems suspicious.
But I think that's it for our top 5, right? I mean, we don't really have to talk about the rest of the guys. I mean, Texans, we're going to talk about a little bit later on how much we're concerned about how they're winning a little bit later on. The Vikings, you already talked about. They pulled out a win at the end of the day in London, so not concerned about them. They still hold strong that 2 spot, and the Chiefs haven't lost, so they can't move down. If the Chiefs lost tonight, Vikings move up at the end of the day. But so rest of that stays strong. Anything else on those power rankings before we move on to our other headlines?
No, there's a couple big games this week that could have some potential movement. As you mentioned, Detroit's playing Dallas. If Dallas beats Detroit,
yeah, they can jump back.
they could jump back in. Obviously the aforementioned Washington, Baltimore game. We got the division game with the Bucks and the New Orleans Saints. We got a division game with the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers. If the Seahawks come out and just smash the 49ers, maybe they're trying to crawl back in. So going to be an interesting week for the top 10 rankings.
Yeah, and I'll throw another one in there. Arizona and Green Bay. I don't think you mentioned, but that one as well. If Arizona can pull out a win, I think it gives credence to maybe them either just missing the cut or sneaking in.
Yeah, their offense has been awful. The Cardinals, Kyler Murray's like 170 yards a game. Like, I don't even know how we lost that game. Besides that fumble, it's just the stupidity of it. I just couldn't even. And I'm sitting there crying myself. I'm by myself on Sunday watching this football game that I'm supposed to be enjoying with a dear friend of mine who didn't show up. And I'm just like, this is an awful football game. Like, Dallas looks terrible. Like, I'm tired of watching terrible football. Like, right. and then you guys won, so I can't even talk crap. Like, my team lost and your team won. I hate when that happens. I get enough of that during the basketball season.
Well, I'm glad that we're talking about the NFC West. I want to move on to the other headlines for Week 5. And my first question to you, Drew, is who will emerge from this kind of messy, contentious NFC West right now? The 49ers had an excellent opportunity to climb take that first place spot indefinitely for Thursday if they win that game. But unfortunately, even if you guys win, there's still 2 division losses that are going to kind of put all of that on hold. So we're going to have to look at Sunday to see how that shakes out. Loss at Arizona Cardinals puts you guys into 3rd place, even with a win over Seattle. Again, those 2 division losses are going to factor into how the seeding is going to look. The Seahawks are in control, but given how early into the season we are and no one's really pulling away at this moment, and they just lost to the Giants. Again, that's wide open there, and Seattle's yet to play a division opponent, so a loss on Thursday would hurt them pretty significantly. When it comes to the Cardinals, win over the 49ers puts them at 2-3, and 2 divisional wins against the Rams and against the 49ers, which respectively gives them the tiebreaker. So Seattle 49ers meet on Thursday night. Who's going to emerge out of all of this NFC West kind of mess right now? Because the Rams are supposed to be a lot better than they were. The 49ers are supposed to be more dominant than what they are right now. Injuries given with that. Seattle's not supposed to be in first place. And the Cardinals, I feel like, are just about where they are. So who's coming out on top on here?
Bro, I'm not worried about this. This is bang, bang, Niner gang all the way, bro. We'll be back in the playoffs like we do every year. And talk to me about the schedule, man. We got the Chiefs. We got the Cowboys. We got the Lions this year. We got the Bills this year. We got the Buccaneers this year. It doesn't matter, man. We step up when it's biggest. We're gonna beat the Seahawks this week, and then we're gonna lose by 3 points in the 4th quarter to the stupid Chiefs, and then we're gonna beat the freaking Cowboys 42-10, and everything will be all right in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still have ultimate confidence that. Nice. I still have ultimate confidence that at the end of the season, we're going to be the division winner. What's disappointing to me right now is just watching bad football. I don't enjoy it. And I could have turned that game off and turned on another football game that was much more enjoyable.
Are you worried about any of the other other teams in your division right now?
Like, for them, or am I worried about them from the 49ers perspective?
From the 49ers perspective to win the division. I'm
not. The Rams season is over. I think, they don't have enough talent anywhere, even though they beat us. The Cardinals, their offenses look terrible, to be honest with you. Kyler Murray is, he's not running the ball like he used to, even though he had a 50-yard run against us. It's just,
look at his little legs go.
I'm not trying to overreact to the one game, right? Their offense hasn't looked great. And, Seattle can't beat us. Geno Smith can't beat us.
Yeah.
Clip that. I might look stupid on Thursday. It's fine. But I'm just, our first round pick is not playing. Our offensive player of the year running back is on the IR. Dre Greenlaw is not playing. And that Dre Greenlaw thing, man, Devondre Campbell is washed. I'll tell you that. He's not a good NFL linebacker anymore. Yeah. Which is too bad, because who's supposed to be playing that position is a certain linebacker that plays for the Cowgirls right now. So it would be really nice to have Eric Kendricks back there instead of Devondre Campbell. But we just got to get my boy Dre Greenlaw Achilles right and get him back on the field, and everything will be okay.
Yeah. This week is pretty big for I think the entire division. Again, it's only big if the Niners lose. At the end of the day, if you guys lose, it's 3 division games down the toilet. Cardinals going to Green Bay, and you can go either way with that game. And then the Rams go into their bye week. But like you said, that's kind of over at this point. There's not much going on there, so I wouldn't really be too concerned about it either. Because a lot what it comes down to, you guys, is a lot of injuries and weird performances, or guys being put in the doghouse, like Brandon Ayuk. He might be out by this point. So I'm excited to see Thursday on where Brandon Ayuk is. Is he going to be game planned for? Is he going to be schemed open? Because if he is, hopefully he's going to be back in the lineup for you guys, more full time and playing the full potential. Or not, because I'm cool with that too. Second question for you, Drew, is who are you more concerned about? The Bills or the Texans right now? Because the Bills just lost their second game in a row after losing to Houston yesterday. And then the Texans currently are 4-1, and their only losses coming against a massive blowout against the Minnesota Vikings. But the wins that they've been having this year have not looked very good. 2-point interdivision win against the Colts, a 1-score against a struggling Chicago Bears, a 4-point win against maybe the worst team in football, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then a win against the Bills, who almost came back and won the game after a 17-3 lead after halftime. So again, Bills back-to-back losses. You talking about maybe the book's out on them, or the Texans, who are kind of getting messy wins, maybe not as dominant as we think, but they're still grabbing the W's. Who are you more concerned about right now?
I'm not too worried about either of these teams, to be honest with you. As the late, great Al Davis said, just win, baby. And the Texans, they're just winning, baby. And they got games against New England, Indianapolis, the Jets, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Miami, Tennessee again. That's like 7 wins, 6 wins right there. So They already have 4 wins on the season. That puts them at 10. I'm not too worried about that. Nico Collins sounds like he's going to miss this week. So maybe we get a reemergence of Tank Dell this week. We'll see. But, the other thing you have to remember is Joe Mixon started off the season really strong. He's been injured. Damon, what's his name before I get yelled at? Damian Pierce has been injured. So it's, they got some injuries just like the rest of the NFL does. I'm not too worried about any of these teams. Josh Allen's going to do what Josh Allen does. And frankly, look at the power rankings, I would have bigger question marks on like the Lions and the Vikings than I do the Texans and the Bills at this point.
You think so? Why is that?
Well, because the Lions don't believe in themselves. So, who knows what's going to go on with it. Like, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me for them to just get absolutely slammed by the Cowboys this week. Now, I'm not rooting for that. I want the Cowboys to lose every week. Matter of fact, I want the Cowboys to just fall into a crevice somewhere and never climb back out. And then the Vikings, I don't believe in it. Like, it's kind of it's the same thing with the Saints. Derek Carr looked so good the first couple of weeks, and now he's turned into a pumpkin. And Sam Darnold has not looked good the past 2 weeks. And it's just like quarterbacks don't generally just do this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the book was out on Darnold, and I know he didn't get a fair shake in New York, and the Panthers kind of bounced him, But if Sam Darnold's upside is going to be a 3-year, $100 million type performance like Baker Mayfield, then his tendencies are going to cause them to lose some games. So ultimately, if it's the Vikings versus the Texans round 2, I'm taking the Texans in that.
And week 7, it's funny you mentioned both those teams. Week 7, they do face off. Detroit and Minnesota face off 10 o'clock for us. So Sunday game, that'll be one to definitely keep an eye on. And then after that, they face the Rams, Indy, Jacksonville, Tennessee. So you kind of get a pretty easy slate for the next 3 games. So 4 games, including the Rams, Chicago, Arizona. Then you have Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle, then Green Bay, Detroit. So then you go back to the interdivision stuff once again. So I don't know, man. It's definitely I didn't have nobody had the Vikings at this point. I think their win total was an average of 6.8 or something like that. was what they were supposed to be, and they're at 5 games right now. They need 2 more to go over what they were supposed to be. So right now, they're already almost exceeding expectations.
I want them to keep winning just so we can laugh and joke and figure out what the hell they're going to do about JJ McCarthy in the offseason, what they're going to do about Sam Darnold in the offseason. That's content I'm here for, because we need something to,
right. Stir the pot.
Hopefully we get a good NBA playoffs this year to keep us going, and not this bullshit we had last year where the Celtics just dominated their way. Yeah. You better watch out for the Knicks, bro. The Knickerbockers, they're coming.
They look pretty good, when all their stars were on the court during the preseason. I don't know if you saw that, but they look pretty good.
I don't watch preseason basketball.
Cat hit a 3 from like 4 steps out, was his first bucket. I was like, oh, well, there we go. Like, that's fucking awesome. Jesus Christ, I won't face that. But I mean, if we're talking about playoff Cat, I'm not really worried about it. So we can move on though. Last question for the headlines for week 5. Is it time for a coaching change in Cincinnati?
Yes.
After a 1-4 start,
yes,
41-38 loss in overtime. I think it's obvious we got to ask the question. You've already talked about the question about the head coaching position there for the Bengals, especially when we're talking about some of the stuff in overtime. The Ravens received the ball in the first in overtime. Jackson gave up a fumble after dropping the snap. The Bengals recovered it at Baltimore's 38-yard line, putting them in a great position to win. Specifically, I saw a post on Instagram said, "Oh, and that's game for the Cincinnati Bengals." And instead of putting the ball in, his $55 million a year quarterback's hands, who was already red hot, and then maybe throwing it around to Jamar Chase, who had 193 yards in the air. So maybe instead of doing that, they wanted to hand it off 3 straight times to Chase Brown. I mean, maybe Zach Moss would have been better. That would have made Drew a little bit happy at least. And then the Bengals missed the game-winning field goal on 4th down. So, and then giving the ball back to Baltimore and then losing the game. You already answered the question. Time to make a coaching change in Cincinnati at this point for you, huh?
Look at this. I'm gonna share this.
What does he say?
He says, "I'm open. I'm always effing open."
Oh, yeah.
Jamar Chase after the Bengals fall to 1-4.
Yep. Why just
now? Just so you know, that was last year. That was in 2023. After the Bengals fell to 1-4. Yep. So nothing has changed. Except for this comment that says Joe Burrow stinking up the place. Dude secured his money and is taking a vacation this season. I'm gonna retweet that. Anyways, I don't think they should fire Zach Taylor in the middle of the season. I don't think that ever works out, especially for a team that's his offense is all based around that. But how poor their defense,
like Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, how poor their defense is and how good a certain defense is operating out of Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if they might take a little peek at a little Brian Flores action in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't think that would be such a bad idea. Again, like you said, the defense is just bad right now, man. And it's really disappointing when it comes to Cincinnati Bengals. Fans have to be disappointed looking at this offense and how talented it is, and then turning around and looking at the defense and going, what the fuck is going on right now? It sucks. And it's not like you could have gone anywhere else in terms of the first round of the draft. You had to draft a tackle. You had to draft someone. And I don't think they took the wrong guy at that spot, Amarius Mims, super raw project, big athletic freak guy. So I don't think they took the wrong guy there at that point. You got to take someone to protect Joe Burrow. And I think this is probably the best offensive line that Joe Burrow has had up to this point. And it's still not fantastic. It's still like a middling, between, I think, 14 to 18 rank is where they are for an offensive line as a collective. So not fantastic still, but still the best offensive line that Joe Burrow has up to this point. And, we're seeing what he can do with that type of talent around him. And again, the defense just sucks. And again, you lose a guy like Dax Hill. Cam Taylor-Britt is kind of up and down all over the place. Yeah, it's just disappointing. So anything else to say about the Cincinnati Bengals or any of the other headlines before we move on to our snap decisions?
No, I just think that there's so much talent on that team that something has to change. And I mean, Maybe you fire your defensive coordinator, try to fire up the team somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they should call the Jets and see if Hassan Reddick wants to come play.
I guess. I mean, I think it's.
I mean, could it hurt at this point? I mean,
do they have the cap for it?
Doesn't matter. Any NFL team has the cap for it if they want to have the cap for it.
Yeah. I mean, well, we don't have cap for Derrick Henry, so I don't know, man.
You guys went all in, so of course you didn't have cap for Derrick Henry. You went all in on Eric Kendricks and Dalvin Cook,
and Linval Joseph and Jordan Phillips, dude. Yeah, that's where all our money went to vet minimums.
I thought about doing your defensive player of the week. Who was that safety that was all over the place? What was his name? The one that got dogged by George Pickens at the end of the game.
Oh, our nickel corner. Jordan Lewis.
Yeah, Jordan Lewis. He was a menace in that game. Almost put him as an honorable mention for the heat check.
Yeah, Jordan's been good for years now, and no one really ever talks about him. So he's kind of like just a forgettable guy. That dude's been around in the league since like Dez got drafted, and he was challenging Dez to one-on-ones. I mean, he got burnt by Dez, but he was challenging the Dez in practices constantly to one-on-one. So, but yeah, Jordan's been in the league for a couple of years. He's been super consistent as a nickel corner. But yeah, he's been pretty awesome. All right, Drew, pretty excited about this next one. You love hot takes. You love to not know about what's coming next.
Hot take cannon is primed and ready.
And we're looking at our snap decisions. This is a brand new segment for us where I'm going to ask Drew 5 questions. He has no idea what these questions are, and that it has to be on the fly, and he has to come up with an answer.
Please don't ask me how much I weigh.
Okay. Are you going to be truthful about it?
Nope, I'm a liar.
All right, we'll start soft. Will this be Lamar Jackson's best year yet?
Yes.
Should there be a quarterback change in Vegas?
Yes.
Over or under 7.5 interceptions for Xavier McKinney to finish the season?
Ooh, under.
Is Jaden Daniels a top 10 quarterback already?
No.
Oh, okay. And fill in the blank. The biggest disappointment in the NFL this year is
Achilles tendonitis.
There it is. I love that. Do you want to elaborate on any one of those? I'll give you the floor to elaborate.
I don't feel good about the Jaden Daniels thing, but I don't think he's top 10 yet.
You know what's funny about that is I have on my screen, is Jaden Daniels a top 10 quarterback already? And then I was like, I'm not sure if you're going to say yes or no. So then I put top 8 question, top 6 question. I was going to see how far I could push you to see if I could push you into a corner. So you're like, no. I was like, damn it. Damn.
I mean, let's do this exercise. Is Dak better than Jaden Daniels?
I mean, I would say yes.
Okay. Jared Goff?
Yeah.
Okay. Jordan Love?
No, not right now.
Okay. Baker?
No.
Kirk?
Even with the performance, no.
Derek Carr?
No.
Okay. Geno Smith?
This year, yeah, I think so.
All right. Brock Purdy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt Stafford?
Ooh. Let's put a pin in that one.
Okay. Josh Allen?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Lamar? Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Joey Burrow?
Yep.
Okay. CJ Stroud?
Yep.
Okay. Patrick Mahomes?
Yep.
Justin Herbert?
Yep.
That's 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we put a pin in Matt Stafford.
Wait, you got 9. I have 10.
What about Jalen Hurts?
He's better than Hurts this year.
Okay.
I have Dak, Goff, Geno, Brock, Josh, Lamar, Joe, CJ, Mahomes, Herbert.
What about Sam Darnold?
Ooh.
They're 5-0, dog.
Yeah, but he has all the weapons. And Jaden doesn't.
Jaden is a weapon.
That's the thing. That's close.
That's what Jaden being what he is why he's successful.
Yeah, damn. I mean, Jaden's teetering. He's already on the cusp of the top 10 quarterback conversation.
Listen, the fact that we had to do what we just did and name out all those quarterbacks just shows you how good of a question it was that you came up with and how incredible that, frankly, CJ Stroud also. Like, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also goes to show you how far Caleb has to go to try to crack that top 10. Because, oof.
Yep, it's definitely going to be a while. Absolutely.
All right, what was the first question? Let's go back. Let's recap this.
Will this be Lamar Jackson's best year yet?
Oh, yeah, he's getting MVP part 3.
Should there be a quarterback change in Vegas?
See, I don't know how I feel about that because we saw Aiden O'Connell last year and everybody's like, oh, the Raiders beat the Chiefs and he didn't complete a fucking pass in quarter 2, 3, or 4. So sure. They should also do a coaching change. They should trade Devontae Adams and Max Crosby tomorrow, which Devontae Adams had a couple of media things scheduled for tomorrow. And one of the guys tweeted out and was like, oh, he's got some stuff going on. Yeah, so maybe some Devontae magic next week or tomorrow, not next week. Yeah, they should just gut that team, the Raiders. So I don't really think the quarterback's going to. The problem is much like the Dallas Cowboys, they got the corpse of Mattison, who's like one of the worst running backs in the league, and whatever Zamir White's doing back there. Yeah. And they just let Josh Jacobs walk, who was also a free agent that you guys could have signed, BT Dubs.
We didn't have the money for it.
What does this team look like if Derrick Henry is a Dallas Cowboy?
A lot better. Yeah.
If you had signed Derrick Henry in the offseason, if you traded for T. Higgins.
I don't even want to do this.
And you could have done that all just by signing Dak early and lowering that cap hit. I digress. What was the second question after the Raiders? What was the third question?
Over under 7.5 interceptions for Xavier McKinney.
I'm going to go under. I know he has a pick in every game he's played, right? Yep. I just assume at some point people are going to be smart and stop throwing to him. Obviously, they didn't do that with Duran last year, so maybe they won't. But generally, it's really hard to get those high level picks, those high number picks, just because teams wise up.
Yeah.
Although this last pick that he had in this last game, he wasn't targeted. He came over. He wasn't the primary coverage. They must have been in some type of zone or whatever. He came over and picked off the ball. So maybe he will get there. Yeah. I kind of that'll be an interesting one to watch.
And then the biggest disappointment in the NFL this year is
Achilles tendonitis.
That was good. I like that. I was wondering where you're going to go with it because it's a fill in the blank.
What's yours?
Being a Cowboys fan. Oh man, where else was I gonna go, dude? I had to go there.
I am honestly as a fan of football and wanting to see certain teams and certain players in certain situations have success. Like for instance, I'm full-heartedly behind the Patriots and not playing Drake May. That offensive line is terrible. They're going to get that dude killed. There's no benching Bryce Young, man. That just sucks. Like, what are you playing for at this point? Like you're not developing. Like, it's you and the Cleveland Browns, and you're racing for what? Shador? Because Shador's not a number 1 overall quarterback pick. He's good. He can process, but there's a defensive end and a corner. I mean, it's going to be Andy Dalton thrown to Travis Hunter next year. Like what? It reeks of, just like with the Browns, it reeks of owners meddling and stuff that they shouldn't meddle with. They should let the football people run the football stuff.
Yep. No, absolutely. Well, that was our Snap Decisions new segment for this week of the NFL. And the last thing that we have, the same thing we have every single week, the very last thing, and that is our upset of the week. Drew, I wanted to hand you the keys first, and I wanted to see where you were going to go ahead and go.
Are you giving me the keys first because I'm winning? Why didn't you throw the records out there? Huh? Huh?
So I am 1-4, and you are 2-3.
And just so you know, I'm 2-3 because I'm starting to pick hard ones so you could try to catch up with me.
And my only one win was a hard one. Do it.
Should I?
Yeah, you should. I think you absolutely should.
All right. This week, there is going to be a matchup between the greatest dual threat quarterback in the history of the game, Lamar Jackson, and they're going to welcome in the first place Washington Commanders. And in that game, Jaden Daniels is going to establish himself as two things: a top 10 quarterback in the NFL and the NFL Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. And they are going to take down the Baltimore Ravens, upsetting them and moving the Commanders to 5-1 on the season. That is my upset of the week.
And so obviously you and I were kind of on the same page about that one. The only other one that I really felt kind of good, I mean, it's an upset. You're not supposed to feel great about any of these, but the one I wanted to go ahead and tilt my head towards, they are 5.5 point underdogs, depending on where you're looking, is the Arizona Cardinals beating the Green Bay Packers this weekend at 10 a.m. So I guess this time we don't have to wait, 9 o'clock in the morning compared to 8:45 at night to see how our upset of the week is going to go. We're both going to know after those 10 o'clock games on Sunday. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and go is Arizona over Green Bay. And then Drew's going to go ahead and go with that Washington over Baltimore, which I like that one a lot too.
Is there any 6:30 a.m. football watching in the Jacob Taylor household on Sunday mornings?
There is, unfortunately.
Yep. Oh, unfortunately. Oh, I love it, bro. I love the London games. I love it.
Usually I'm fine, but then I worked on Saturday, and then I was like, man, I don't want to be watching football. And then I set my alarm for like 6:25. Like, man, I don't want to be doing this, and I still did.
I'm up. The alarm normally goes off after I'm awake anyway, but I'm up at 7 a.m. every morning. Generally, Sunday morning is the morning I sleep in. But if I'm going to wake up and watch some football, it was a good game. Next week, I think we got the Jaguars, which kind of sucks. Yeah. Hopefully they play someone good. But yeah, I'm up at 6:30. I'm in it to win it.
I'm sorry. You should probably look at the schedule because we have back-to-back Jaguars this weekend, next week at 6:30 in the morning.
Well, who are they playing?
Chicago in this week, and we have New England.
Oh no! So at least I get Caleb and Rome this week, but next week.
Yep, that's what you get in week 7.
All right. Well, here's a spoiler alert for the podcast. I might be sleeping in week 7. I don't know if I'm getting up for Jaguars Patriots.
I don't know if I really blame you either.
Sorry.
All right, Drew. That's it for this week. Is there anything that you want to say to the people?
Yeah. Please send me your applications to become a fan of your team. I will consider all applications at this point. I am considering no longer being a 49ers fan because they're pissing me off.
Fair.
That's all I got.
All right. If you stick around to the end, we do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or follow us on Apple Podcast or on Spotify. Hit us up on TikTok as well. You can catch some of our shorter content over there. And then stick around to the end of this week because we will be having our NBA show for the first time on Friday night, and then the full show being posted on Saturday along with the clips as well. Again, you'll see all the clips on YouTube. Full shows go on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you follow us on all social platforms. If you do, we do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that bell button. Besides that, you guys have a wonderful week. We'll see you Friday.
Peace.
See ya.